Hey, look, Jim, it's another episode of Dragging Up the Past.
What? Hooray! Looking at old Dragon magazines, what could be better for 5 hours?
Yeah,
That's
well,
how long we'll go, right?
we'll try and keep it. Look, this is a two-digit issue, and most of those have tended to be a little on the shorter side. And so, as a two-digit issue, especially one sub 50, this might move a little quicker than an hour and a half. Although I suppose it depends on how long it takes us to get through an introduction here, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm Brant. He's Jim. I guess we're your tour guides through this. And Dragon number 47. Going old school tonight, Jim.
Oh, I love it. This is it's probably no secret that this is when a young boy's dreams of D&D could be fulfilled by going to the mailbox and pulling out a dragon. For the vast cost, I think the subscription cost would have been about $1.25, but here we have the front page cost of $3.
Yes, $3 on the newsstand. I will tell you. So this Dragon magazine episode and issue predates my involvement in the hobby.
Oh,
so
right.
This is pre-Brant being a role player. This is not, oddly enough, pre-Brant being a wargamer. Thanks, Dad. When you've got 6 and 7 year olds pushing counters around the map, you know you're doing something right. My dad was doing something right. I found role playing about 4 or 5 years after I found wargaming, and so that tells you how early I started with the wargaming side. So here's the deal: I have not dug very deeply into this issue. This was very much find me an older issue and find me something on the cover that sort of grabs my attention. And believe it or not, it wasn't the girl in the bikini that mysteriously has no straps. It was the fact that
it is magic.
Well, yes, she is riding a lizard. So it's the fact that we have a full game in this issue, and so we thought we'd take a look at crime fighters as a part of our exploration of Dragon magazine here. So commentary on our cover. This isn't quite 5th grade back of the binder artwork.
Well, I'd have to cheat to go ahead. Do we know who this is by? Is this by someone of note?
I have no idea. Again, I'm covered deep on this issue, so this is.
I don't know, but it's a lovely piece. It's a little pastel, which is a bit unusual, but it's certainly in the style of Dragon in those days. And for all the good, healthy conversation about the place of women in fantasy, there's no doubt that. See, I'm 15 years old at this time. That there was certainly an appeal to scantily clad women who may or may not ride lizards.
Yes.
So, very much of a piece with my high school years.
I will say there's sort of shades of Liz Danforth as the art type, not the model. I have no idea what she looks like. Liz Danforth got famous years later for a variety of fantasy gaming artwork, but especially a ton of early Magic the Gathering cards. Mm-hmm. However, I suspect this is before Liz Danforth was an active artist out there. So let's go see what we've got. So this is Volume 5, Number 9. We shall find out the date here in a moment when we get to our actual table of contents. We have a Ral Partha ad inside the front cover. So we've got some minis. Again, black on white. Really a pain in the butt to see, but about the best for the state of the art that we had at the time. But hey, look, an ice ad on the inside front page.
We didn't take long, did it, kids?
No. At some point, we're going to have to go back through the early issues of Dragon magazine and find out at what point ICE bought the inside front page and at what point they finally relinquished it, because I'm not sure they've let go yet.
A couple of things, and this is usually your bailiwick, but I'm going to jump in here. A couple of things. Number one, this is typed.
Yes, I shall zoom in.
This is typed on a typewriter.
Yes.
Number two, how do I know? Well, I suppose 1B, how do I know? Because of the way they use capitalization to indicate all caps to indicate basic text, and then when they want to use titles, which would usually be italicized, they go to lower and uppercase.
Yes.
So it has the collective effect of yelling at you.
Yes. And yet somehow they still manage to justify both left and right margins.
That's exactly what I was heading to. How do you do that?
That's math. That's math.
Okay.
Again, we are trending way off into layout nerddom here, but this is a monospace font. Somebody
Yes.
sat down and figured out the math as a part of the editing to make
Shut the
sure
front
that
door. That I now realize what you're talking about. Wow. Okay.
yes, and that is why you will notice there's only like 2 places in here where there are multiple spaces after periods. One of them conspicuously here, another one down below here, rather conspicuously, and I suspect that that is in part so that they can make the lines balance.
Mm.
This is math. This is what it took, people.
That's wow. All right then.
But that's the only way. Look, back then that was the only way you were going to get a justified left-right margin like that, is if you were using a monospace font. And for those people wondering what the hell we're talking about, a monospace font is one where every character takes up the exact same amount of width when you type it. So the I takes up just as much width as the W. That's what we're talking about. Of note, also, while we're in full layout nerdness here, you'll notice that dragon on the top right, sans serif, dragon on the top left, front cover logo.
Nice.
Yes. Still hadn't sorted that part out yet. Although we go to all serifs here. So this is March of '81. So this is I'm about 3 or 4 months from starting my role-playing life here, because it was the late summer of '81 when I first started playing. Notice our publisher, the man himself, St. Gary, as a publisher. Kim Mohan is a mere assistant editor at this point, and Roger Moore and Ed Greenwood, mere contributing editors. So,
I feel a little guilty. What's your number one song, March of 1981?
Oh, good Lord. March of '81. I don't know. It's got to be something atrocious like The Village People.
You're right, it is well, I won't say it's atrocious, because I love her to little pieces, but it's certainly not Dolly Parton's best work, as she gives us 9 to 5.
Oh, so, 9 to 5 was number one on another one when we were in the 40s. So either we ended up with 2 issue numbers very close together, or that song hung on a lot longer than it deserved.
So Dolly Parton's 9 to 5, and the number one movie of March of 1981?
I'm trying to remember the other episode on the off chance that it happened to be the same answer, but I don't. I suck at the movie ones, dude. March of '81.
And just to remind people, this is the biggest overall movie released in that month.
Yeah. This is post Empire Strikes Back. Is it 9 to 5? Is it the movie 9 to 5?
It is not.
Okay.
It is On the Right Track.
Oh, man. Okay.
Do you remember it?
Vaguely.
I am horrified to admit that I saw it in the theaters. I don't know what it was that I was doing, but I absolutely went out to the movies to see this. This was a Gary Coleman vehicle.
Yeah, this was the submarine one. He's the kid who sees the betting lines in the newspaper,
Correct.
Right? Okay. I don't remember this from the theaters. I remember it from cable TV several years later.
So we had 9 to 5 and On the Right Track here in March of 1981.
Probably could have left them in '81, huh?
Oh, good gracious. Yeah, neither of these will be judged eternal. Although there's an eternal awfulness to On the Right Track, but we move on.
Yes, please. So we have contributing artists this month. It does not tell us who the cover is, and so I'm scrolling our way down on the off chance that it tells us, but I'm not seeing cover art or cover artist anywhere. So I'm just trying to scroll through here quickly to see what we get. So we've got the cover to cover. So the thing I used to always tell my students in public speaking classes, I'd call them my kids, but I taught adult classes as well, is you're going to tell them what you're going to tell them, and then you're going to tell them, and then you're going to tell them what you told them. And here we have Kim Mohan telling us what they're going to tell us, because he's giving us the tour. We could just read this column and call it a show, couldn't we?
Just go through here and see what we see.
Yeah, not quite. However, I am not seeing anything about the cover art, which is a little frustrating. That's kind of a bummer. I'm sort of hoping we would. Oh well. Okay. Hey, look. At least it's not an April issue where we end up with joke stuff again.
Right.
Out on a limb. So this is the letters column. The
all right,
analog message board of yesteryear, huh?
I'm not going to lie. For those who don't know, I'm cheating a little bit. I know you're doing your thing in your window. I'm looking at it in my window as well, so I can stay up with you and look around a little bit. Did you, by any chance, in March of 1981, go by the name Roger E. Moore?
No. I also was not living in Mannheim, Germany.
Okay. I know you spent time in Germany.
Yes.
But because, again, it almost goes too far to make too much fun of these letters. But this one is absolutely precious. The height of absurdity. Dear editor, I finished reading my December issue of Dragon magazine in a rage.
Wait. How could he have been in a rage? Steel Beast DRM hadn't been invented yet.
Nor had people started clipping their counters.
We don't know that. We don't know that.
Maybe they had, you're right. But there certainly were no Oregon laminator counter rounders.
No.
So they're probably doing some horrible butchery with a scissors, making it look like a stop sign.
Fingernail clippers.
But, that's even better.
That's how you end up with Luftwaffe counters.
Yes. Yes.
Figured you were going to round them anyway.
But yeah, there were no dongles, there were no DRMs, there was no Battlefront.com combat mission DRM systems, and there was no Steam to make people angry.
And yet somehow we still ended up in a rage.
He ended reading Dragon in a rage. To all our friends in the greater Groghead universe, if you ever end a magazine in our hobby in a rage, reevaluate your life choices. I understand if you're reading a political magazine or a theology magazine or anything else that you ought to care about, I get it. But if you are reading Dragon, and what caused rage from young Brant Guillory going by the name of Roger E. Moore? I refer to the letter from the player, quote, lowly players, end quote, who says his DM won't let his group subscribe to Dragon because therein, who says they're in except me, are things meant only for the DM. I've been in, dozens of Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing groups. I could not imagine the conversation in which somebody said, don't you dare subscribe to Dragon. There's DM wisdom there, and it's only for me.
I want to know, this. We're going to have to go back and look up this letter in a future episode, but I am dying to know what sort of cult that DM has established. That he has the power to forbid his players to exercise their own free will and their own free economic association to choose which magazines they shall subscribe to. I mean, is he like checking their mailboxes every month? You know, when his issue shows up, he hops on his bike and pedals down the street quick and checks to see if there's one in their mailbox too?
Or if he catches you?
Yeah.
I mean, are you hiding? Do you furtively stow your Dragon into your backpack when you're GM, or do you wrap it in a Sports Illustrated cover so he doesn't know what it is?
Yeah, I was thinking a Playboy cover, but Sports Illustrated works.
Even better. Yeah, sure. So, goodness. I was so delighted by the fact that this magazine caused rage. So we had an absurdity, not letting your players subscribe to a magazine.
Yes.
Leading to an absurdity.
Yes.
Rage to Dragon magazine. So we are off to a rip-roaring start in episode 47.
For what it's worth, in the spring of '81, we were at Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Oh, okay. So this is probably then, you have probative evidence that this is not, in fact, young Bayonet Brand.
Well, not only that, but we've already established that this is about 4 or 5 months before I even started playing role-playing games.
Yes, That's a good point.
So
Very
there's
good.
also that. Because I picked that up in California in late summer '81. Okay, so an ad for the Dungeon Adventure game.
Okay, this is first of all, I had this TV. I had that
Of all the
TV.
things to notice in the ad, did your mom have that hairdo?
My mother would have been older than this.
Did you
This is
have that
a
hairdo?
this is a young mom. Did I have that? Yes. This is both older than my mother and father would have been in 1981, because my dad is actually Greatest Generation. He served in World War II. But I very much had this young man's haircut. I was a little older, but that very generic, yeah, we really didn't pay too much attention, let's leave it long haircut is there. But the other thing I love, because it was the thing we had, and boy did we have it, you notice the slide projector on the shelf?
Yeah, I was wondering if that's where you were going for that, was the slide projector.
Yeah, so you had it, because that was entertaining.
Yep.
Just load up a deck of slides. 18-inch color, hopefully, it should be a color TV and slides. Well, no foolin' Dungeon was better.
Yeah. Plus, if you wanted pictures of your vacation for both your scrapbook and to be able to show to the entire family, you now had to get them developed as both photos and slides.
That's right. Well, no, you could get slide film.
Yes.
You could buy slide film that it only came back as slides, which I often did because I didn't have this one. I had the carousel. Project. Nobody has any idea what we're talking about right now.
And we wonder why these episodes are 90 minutes.
but oh my goodness, no. And I let me also say, I loved Dungeon.
Oh yeah.
The idea that I could crack open a D&D game that others could play with me. Now the idea that my mom or dad were going to play with me is absurd on its face.
No,
but,
Dad might have played, to humor us and to give us, a third or fourth person in the game. Mom would have just handed some snacks out at the table.
Right. Yeah.
That's not sexism. That's just my mom would have been handing out snacks at the table.
No. Yeah. No. My mom. Well, and let it also be said, and I don't know if we've come up with this before. My mom was a little dodgy on the whole demon aspect of Dungeons and Dragons. I never got the straight up Jack Chick-esque "Don't you dare play that evil game." But it was nothing she was overly fond of.
Yeah. My parents just wanted me to make sure I got my homework done first.
Absolutely.
Which was about a 50-50 proposition.
I honestly should say, in memory of my beloved departed mother, she bought me my first player's handbook. So there was that.
There you go. All right. Don't just think about it. Let's take the AD&D exam. Oh, my God. I didn't realize this was here, but let's see how bad we do.
There are so many, you look at these things, but I suppose we should probably take the first 10 together. That seems right, doesn't it?
Sure. Well, they're all monster manual ones. The first handful are monster manual ones. True or false? Well, here's the real question. Do you have a monster manual handy to check whether or not we're even remotely right? Or are you just going to make a note of the answers and we'll check the answer key when we get there later?
Well, no, yeah. Well, I was figuring we'd just do these one after the other here.
All right.
Where's the answer key? Does it say?
Oh, it probably says, but hang on. I'd have to zoom out to find it. Answer is page 57, so you can flip your...
57. I will get there. All
well,
right, go ahead.
Don't get too far ahead, or you're going to have all the...
I'm not going to cheat.
Okay.
But I will have the answers ready to go.
Skeletons are a malicious form of undead that hate human life. I've seen Jason and the Argonauts, so I'm going to assume yes.
Yeah, I don't know how that could possibly be. I don't know what the angle would be if that were false. Okay, we're going to do this. False. Skeletons are mindless and thus not capable of malice.
Okay, sure.
I'm going to punch somebody already. Let's keep going.
Despite their low hit dice, ogre magi make deadly foes. I don't think they have low hit dice, do they?
I think that's false. Yeah, I think they have high hit dice.
My impression was always they were kind of a son of a bitch to kill, but...
Yeah, so let's find out. Oh, true. Their ray of cold and other magic powers make them powerful in spite of their 5+2 HD. Okay, well, so we're 0 for 2.
Well, see, 5+2 hit dice is still a little on the high side for me, considering that I was always a fan of very low-level role-playing. So I guess that one's a bit of perspective.
Yeah, and you and I have shared our mutual love of that, which would tell me that I suppose for a level appropriate, say a 6th or 7th level party, that's not a big deal. But if you're heading out of the keep on the Borderlands and your next quest is for an ogre magi, that's a bad afternoon.
Yeah. Bring friends. Put them in red shirts.
Bring friends. All right, what's 3?
There are 5 types of, quote, true, unquote, giants. Hill, storm, frost, fire. What are we missing? There's hill giants, storm giants, frost giants, fire giants. I got to be missing one. I mean, they're the ice giants, but that's Norse mythology. I don't know that they were canonical Monster Manual critters, were they?
Did you list Cloud?
I did not. So there are 5.
Okay. So what's the question? Remember, I'm hiding above the answer, so
it is true, false. There are 5 types of true giants, and I'm saying true, even though I couldn't actually name all 5. But I thought that there were 5. I was thinking ice. The answer is actually cloud. The others being hill, storm, frost, and fire.
Whoa! Where's stone?
Okay, so are we up to 6, or did I miss one? Did I?
What did you? Okay, now I'm going to write these down. Go ahead. Give me
hill giants.
Yes.
Frost giants.
Yep.
Storm giants.
Yep.
You've got cloud, which I had missed, and then you're saying stone giants.
Yep.
Okay. Is that 5?
And I thought you read fire.
I said fire. So does that make 6?
That's 6. That sounds like 6 to me.
Okay. What's the answer?
We're going with that? We're going to go with that?
We'll go with 6. So that means this is false.
I'm feeling poor about this.
And we're going to be wrong again.
It is false. There are 6. Ha! Suck it, TSR. Hill, stone, frost, fire, cloud, and storm. All right. I feel better.
Red dragons are the most feared. Hang on, I got to scroll to the top of the next line. Most feared type of evil dragon, because they are the most vicious and less likely to be asleep at any given time than any other kind, and are more common than the other kinds. There's like 5 conditions in there, so I'm just going to say false just on the face of it, because anytime you've got a true-false question with like 5 conditions in there.
Oh, that's good. Ooh, that's good question. That's good.
Something's going to be wrong. There's no way they hit every single one of those markers.
That's a really good point. All right, I'm scrolling down. Whoa, false. Glad I bought into your club.
Yeah.
All 3 reasons given are either wrong or irrelevant to the question.
Okay.
Nothing in the Monster Manual says that red dragons are more vicious than any other kind of dragon. They are not more common than other kinds. The likelihood that a red dragon will be asleep is irrelevant to the degree which it is feared when awake. Okay, that's the second punch to the face.
Yeah.
Or actually punch to the throat. I'm going with that. Any of the following are acceptable reasons. Okay, other than it's a red dragon. They have a larger size, larger breath weapon, greater likelihood of spell use. They have 1st to 4th level spells, and the lowest armor class. If you answered false because you thought Tiamat was the most feared type of evil dragon, give yourself credit for answering the question correctly.
Okay, sure. But isn't Tiamat part red dragon?
No, but the point is that it is evil.
Yes. All right. We're going to skip ahead because I just want to know what they say for number 10. A mind flare is no longer dangerous to high-level characters once its sonic blasts have been expended. It can still eat your brain. I'm going to go false.
Yeah, that's that. No, wow, that's okay. Okay, they're going to screw us somehow because that seems, as I'm sitting here, obviously false. Because, yes, like you say, they will eat your skull, or, well, the soft insides.
Yes.
And it is false. The Mind Flayer's physical attack is deadly.
Okay.
All right, not too bad.
All right. Well, there's a whole lot of player's handbook stuff and other things going on from here because this goes down. I mean, there's questions 16 to 20 pertain to other character classes, but then they break them down into A, B, C, and D for fighters, clerics, thieves, and magic users. Miscellaneous multiple choice. All right. Here's the Gibby. Number 21. The letters TSR in TSR Hobby stand for...
Tactical Studies Rules.
Yeah. Are you on a page where you can see the other options?
No.
Theoretical Simulations Rules. Totally silly rules.
Well, that would apply.
Takers sans remorse.
Did you meet Gary Gygax?
Certainly applies to most players I know. Or none of the above. Now, the answer is C, tactical studies rules. But, yeah. Let's see.
Well, you know what? And those things are fun. Quizzes are fun.
Short answers on miscellaneous topics.
Oh, good Lord.
You are a 5th level magic user casting a 1st level spell against a creature that is 35% magic resistance. What is the percent chance the magic resistance will spoil the spell? It's 35%, isn't it? Or is it a sliding scale based on your level and the level of the spell?
I think there's got to be a multiplier for the spell level, doesn't
Probably. It's number 36.
We're talking AD&D, there is.
Yes, it's number 36.
36. Yes. I don't know. I didn't do the math. I should have done the math to get. Our impulse was correct. It is 35% plus 11 minus 5 times 5%, which is 65%.
And people wonder why everyone shifted to computer games.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so you obviously can't take. I can't answer this because I saw it. I'm just very curious. What's question 40?
Question 40. Which two of the following monsters are of the same alignment?
Oh, okay.
Asmodeus, a night hag, Jubilex, a Quasit, and Bahamut. Jubilex and Bahamut. I don't know what's the answer.
You're half right. I would have gotten this wrong. Jubilex and the Quasit are both chaotic evil.
Okay. Funny how much of the Monster Manual was chaotic evil.
Oh, yes. Well, you gotta have the bad guys, ultimately.
I know. Garagax the Tricky, a thaumaturgist, was contemplating a means whereby he and his 2nd level apprentices could cross a rushing river with all their equipment. The way looked difficult, for Garagax had but one fly spell, and the spell would not last long enough for him to carry all his apprentices and their gear across, even if the weight should not be too great. After pondering the problem a long while, Garagax shouted, "Aha! Mine peerless brain hath done it again." All right, somehow you've got to explain this to us. This is number 50. It's the last one in the quiz. What do we got?
So the question is, how do I get stuff across?
Yes.
My standard method of getting anything across is to use Tensor's floating disk.
Well, they're using a fly spell somehow. So, apparently he and the apprentices all were incanting at the same time. And soon thereafter, they were seen on the other side of the river. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to use a Tensor's floating disk and I'm going to fly, but I don't know exactly what they're doing. All right, let's take a look. Hang on a second. Garagax cast a fly and a Tensor's floating disk spell. Okay, great. So what did they do? While each of the apprentices cast a Tensor's floating disk spell. Then they formed a procession, with Garagax leading and each apprentice sitting on the disk of the man in front of him, along with each man's equipment. In this way, they all flew across the river. Other less plausible solutions, as if that's plausible.
Yeah.
Other less plausible solutions include each man jumped across with a jump spell, assuming the river was only 30 feet wide, a questionable assumption in view of the facts given. Or, as above, except that each apprentice cast Featherfall, assuming that they could form a line and cross in 2 segments, a very questionable assumption indeed. All right, so I got the pieces there. I just don't know as I correctly organized them.
Okay, good enough. All right.
These are fun. I like.
They
this.
are fun.
All right, I'm gonna say I liked it. Liked it.
They are fun. It just, let's face it, the 13, 14-year-old us was far more likely to get this correct than 40-something-year-old us or 50-something-year-old us.
Let's be clear, we would have mocked openly anybody who got them wrong.
Oh, yeah. No. Mercilessly.
We would have looked at them like the Simpsons comic book guy. Hello, Aquaman. you know he would cast Fly and Tensor's Floating Disc.
Yeah, yeah. Like how could you claim to be a role player and not know these things? So, okay, so elementary ideas for elemental adventuring. So Gary Gygax is getting off onto other planes again. I don't know how deeply we want to really dig into Gary's
I've
fever
never
dreams
understood
here.
his obsession with the planar
No.
travel. Never have.
I do like so we have a remarkably well organized chart here for an early issue of Dragon Magazine.
Oh
So
yeah.
the magic user spell and be unable to cast on other planes. So you cannot cast Burning Hands on the plane of water, earth, or air.
Well, again, if you follow the article, this is a letter. This is a suggestion.
Yeah.
In response to the Great One's call for, hey, tell us what you think elemental planar travel would look like.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's an option. There's a second letter in here that's where'd we go? With I love the wording that we used to get in these things, right? The brevity was never a problem for Dragon Magazine, right?
No.
I read through Mr. Lakofka's article, The Inner Planes, with not an uninterested eye. Right? Nobody turned a phrase like early role players.
Hey, steady. These are our people.
Yes, they are.
Particularly my people.
Yes, they are. All right. Dragon Tales magazine. We've talked about this before. It was a collection of some of the fiction that appeared in Dragon.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea, but I don't know as I ever made it more than like one or two fiction stories deep in any of my Dragon magazine collection. They just didn't grab me that much.
No.
Yeah. Look, fair play to those that dug them. I got no issue with them. I'm not one of those people who's like, damn it, you had something in Dragon that didn't appeal to me. But it didn't appeal to me. I'm just not going to be upset about it. So, beware, Lord Namalk the Seventh is coming.
Okay, what is that?
I don't know, but I do declare that we are back to 5th grade binder sketches.
Yes. This is so amazing. You've got this medieval times-esque castle, and I don't know what that's supposed to be. Do I assume that is Lord Namalk the Seventh?
Dressed up for trick-or-treat?
Yeah, like Charlie Brown and a ghost?
Who knows?
What is that? Is that a staff?
I hope it's a staff.
Oh, God. That's all we're saying. But, I mean, first of all, the fact that they could, well, probably 12th of all at this point, they couldn't get the 7th to work with their Lord Namalk font.
We've been down this road before.
The VII,
yes.
I wonder if the I just looked horrible.
Or if they were afraid that given the fact that we tend to try to pronounce literally everything in every fantasy book, if we would have thought it was Lord Namalk Vi is coming.
Oh my God.
I will say this, though. We've just spent 3.5 minutes talking about a pretty farcical ad. They got us to pay attention.
Okay, 7th.
You're going to go look this up. It may be on the next page. This may be like a Burma Shave ad. It's going to be... Nope, it's not on the next page.
This is making me so sad.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway.
We're going to the Creatures from Elsewhere. You can keep looking up Lord Namalk the Seventh.
Laugh if you must.
Creatures from Elsewhere. The Wurchler. Sounds like a Dr. Seuss critter. The origin was from Gehenna. Not Gehenna. People from Columbus, don't start getting mad at us picking on your suburbs. The frequency was rare. The number appearing was from 1 to 10. I love these old first edition monster stat blocks. These were awesome. Percent chance in lair. 5% chance of being at home. So this is a critter that slept fewer than 1 out of 20 hours of its life. Because the percent chance in lair was only 5%. I mean, at some point, doesn't this thing nap?
Right.
Treasure type is see below. Special attacks. Wurching.
What is that?
I don't know. Let's go find out.
They will.
It inflicts its special damage and sits back and enjoys their dying screams. Okay, so appears as a disembodied mouth with two long, scrawny, hairy arms sticking out where its cheeks ought to be. Okay, so it's that thing up there. That's fun. Barely has to move its arms to flit about. When 4 or more Wurchlers get together, they can and will utilize their special attack. They start rubbing their teeth together. That right there would drive me nuts, right? Just the sound of grinding teeth. The noise stimulates pain centers in the nervous system. Yes, it does. And if the Wurchlers are allowed to continue in this manner for one full round, all monsters and humans except those below within a 6-inch radius will scream and writhe on the ground, unable to attack. So I guess that's Wurchling. Wurching.
So they give you fierce headaches? Is that what I
guess?
Understand?
I mean, is that considered a psionic attack?
I think it is. I had a dear friend who, long before the movie The Mothman came out, he was from Brown County, West Virginia, and he said he was the first person to ever tell me about the West Virginia Mothman, and the attack that he described was very similar to that of the Wurchler.
Well, okay.
That is so weird.
Yes.
Wurchling. I may try that at work tomorrow. See if I get any better compliance from my fellow workers. What is he doing? He says he's Wurchling.
Good luck with that. So yeah, that's kind of obnoxious, really. And I love that the old D&D stats were given in a 6-inch radius, the assumption of a combat grid or map on the table, because otherwise there is no way that a 6-inch radius would actually be the damage radius, right?
Right.
Because otherwise it would be like the Stonehenge scene from Spinal Tap. So, all right. We have the Aruchai, the Phoenix. We have the Fury. This is a little better than 5th grade binder sketch art right here. This is not half bad. This is DSL in 81. Let's go look at our contributing artists and see if we can figure out who DSL was. Dave LaForce, I'm going to go with. Because I doubt it was Darlene. So probably Dave LaForce. So nice art there, Dave. Appreciate your contributions to the cause. That one's not too bad. All right. The Map Maker apparently is some kind of critter from another place. Right? So, looks like an overgrown weasel at distances of 20 feet or more. However, up close it is obviously quite different. Scaled skin like a lizard, long tail, humpback, and stands on 2 legs. It has an Elizabethan-type ruff about its neck.
All right.
I guess that's to keep him from licking his stitches.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on. Star Master. Just out of curiosity, Shubal and Son, these are the Tribes of Crane guys, aren't they?
Yep.
Okay.
That's right. We have discussed this. We have discussed the greatness that is Star Master.
It I never played any play-by-mail anythings when I was, throughout back when play-by-mail was a bigger thing than it is now. Obviously now you can do it all online, but I never was a play-by-mail person, but I was always astounded at the number of play-by-mail ads that you would see in Dragon, and I could only think that it had to be a pretty significantly attended hobby for it to be able to support that many ads.
Well, yes, but I mean, if you think about it, it's an incredibly low overhead buy-in.
Yeah.
What do you need to set up a PBEM after all?
Well, there was no E back then.
Well, right. What am I saying? What's your PBM? A lot of envelopes, a printer, and postage.
Well, and depending on what you were doing, you needed the dot matrix printer, but you needed some rudimentary program to spit some stuff back out. Unless you were going to sit there and, free Kriegspiel / Bogsat the whole thing and type missives to your participants. You needed some sort of programmatic generation.
Is that weird? Would that be wrong?
I'd cast no judgment.
Okay.
The Bazaar of the Bazaar, the Flute of Dismissing, the Staff of Ethereal Action. This sounds like your daily tools of the trade. The Flute of Dismissing possesses the power to disrupt the magic that bind conjured or summoned monsters in their enchanted states. So
I want one of those. I want one of those.
So you can end your city council meetings.
It's the official weapon of Jethro Tull.
Yeah, there you go. The Staff of Ethereal Action, known as a blink staff. When the command word is spoken, it allows the holder to blink for a total of up to 2 turns per day. There you go. So you can, what you want to do is you want to sync up with your Displacer Beast. So that way you're blinking at the same time. The Horseshoes of Hades will appear as normal iron shoes.
They will. A couple of those in my life.
Yeah. When the first of the shoes is physically moved, that shoe will turn jet black in color and will thereafter appear to be made of some foreign unknown material. Huh. When all 4 of them are attached to any kind of horse, it's magically transformed into a nightmare with 33 hit points. There you go. Sarar's Silver Sword. So these are kind of nifty little critters.
No, I like it. I'm actually reading the Horseshoes of Hades, and I think I kind of like them. That's a nasty one, because I guarantee you every party I've ever adventured with would slap them on a horse just to see what would happen.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's like that great cartoon, you know. The pessimist says the glass is half empty. The optimist says the glass is half full. The gamer says, I drink it. What happens?
Right.
I like this, too. Patch Press, right here. Game manufacturing. We feature a complete line of components that can be modified to your needs. Rulebooks, dice, pawns, spinners, maps, setup boxes, and folding cartons. They can do die-cut counters, playing cards, plastic wrapping. Where the hell were these guys for the last, 35 years?
Well, here's the thing. I noticed them first because of the area code on their phone number.
I suppose you're going to tell us where
that is Beloit, Wisconsin.
Yes.
So now I'm going to take a look at her.
See if they're still there.
That is now it always was in an industrial park, it would seem, but it is right now an empty warehouse.
Well, that is too bad.
Long gone now.
All right. Reaching new heights of adventure, we've got Judges Guild doing all sorts of neat stuff. Of note, first of all, this is some very nice artwork. It's not very well reproduced in the magazine. That's some decent artwork. Down here, look for Temple Book 1 and Castle Book 2, each $3 at your local dealer or right. Judges Guild, blah, blah, blah. This summer, our good buddy Airboy from the GrogHeads forums was unloading a whole lot of his old printed D&D and other fantasy role-playing material and offered up, first dibs to the Grogs on a lot of those things. Hey, if there's something in here you want, let me know, and I'll bring it to you at Origins. And he had a copy of Shady Dragon Inn, AC1, one of the very few Mystara-oriented products that I didn't already own. So of course, I asked him, hey, if you don't mind, bring that one along. Because I'm one of those weird collector types that I refuse to go the eBay route, right? That's just cheating. You've got to actually go out and collect them. You can't just go buy them from the world's largest dumping ground. But one of the other things that he had put in there with the handful of things I asked for, he threw a couple of spare things in. One of them was Castle Book 2. So I got a copy of Castle Book 2 from Airboy this summer. And truth be told, it was actually my second copy of Castle Book 2. I already had one.
That is still pretty cool, though, getting one of those old friends back.
Oh, yes. Very cool. All right, Lehman's Tiny Hut, we're digging into the Thief a little bit. However, the Complete Gamer over at Palatine, Illinois, a full-service wargame shop, mind you, wargame shop. Which had their latest arrivals just in from England, from Games Workshop. So, the Doctor Who game, the old Warlock game, So,
What is the first game? I can't see it well enough on mine.
I'm not sure. I can't see it that well on mine either. So, somebody with Dragon 47, flip to page 21. Tell us what the hell that is.
What does that say?
Yes. This first game right here. Please tell us. There will be fabulous amounts of recognition for you in our forums, and really, we don't have anything else to give you. Sorry. Giants in the Earth, classic heroes from fiction and literature. So, again, we're blatantly ripping off people's...
In my mind, hey, in my mind, they can never do this enough.
Yeah.
This is why I read Dragon magazine.
Statting out the
all these famous characters. I wanted a conversation about freaking characters from the Aeneid, from all this crazy stuff, and the fact that they were willing to go into this literature and poke around in it, and then give me a bibliography I could check. That is really, really neat.
Yes. Now, keep in mind, this is the same magazine that also gave us stats on Bugs Bunny and the Jolly Green Giant.
What? Okay. Now you're hitting with your words again. But no, Medea is no small matter. Camilla, no small matter. No. Medea is probably the bigger figure, but Camilla figures into the Aeneid. And seeing an article about her, what are her stats, and the idea that, she actually wasn't a mere mortal, she was hero quality, and what are her abilities. I do love the fact that it's kind of a good in-joke for those who might have read the Aeneid, that they gave her an 8 wisdom, but a 16 charisma is kind of funny.
Yes. Yes.
And she's also no joke with an 18-21 strength.
No. Or a 17 dexterity and a whole lot of arrows. So.
Yes.
I do want to question the idea of, look, Medea is an 18th level magic user. I totally get, right? Instead of a cleric, although we can quibble over that one. That's fine. But I just don't know that Medea is chaotic neutral, at least not at the start. She might eventually go chaotic neutral once, Jason kicks her to the curb, But I don't know if she opens up chaotic neutral, or she wouldn't have been the one to help the Argonauts escape, right? So.
Oh, right. No, that's right. And maybe I assume that that's because this is how you would experience her, i.e., after the adventure with the Argonauts.
I guess. So there are various ways, I guess, in which you could end up encountering her. Along the Argonauts' quest, certainly not. You could make a case for being chaotic neutral towards the end of it all when she just wants to watch the world burn. Brings up a totally separate, longer philosophical discussion we can have at a later time, which is, can you actually change your alignment? And if so, under what circumstances?
You mean deliberately?
Yeah. Well, or
by actions.
Or by actions, So.
Well, that's the whole paladin arc, right?
Yeah.
The paladins are always up against their alignments.
Yeah.
And when they fail, well,
yeah, you're not a paladin anymore. Sorry.
Right. And now you're Lancelot and spending the rest of your story arc seeking redemption.
Yeah. I love how they crammed the fantasy box ad in here sideways, in part because they had to fit the Medea stuff in here correctly. The rest of the Medea content. The merry month of Myrtle. All right, so first started DMing. Go ahead.
Ed. Not Don. Ed decided to build a calendar.
Yes. Laboriously putting together a fantasy world, I found myself looking for some sort of handy justification for a multitude of factors. So here is a question, dear reader. Is that the calendar that we end up with in Forgotten Realms? Some number of years later? Because it is Ed Greenwood, and it is the fantasy world that he has started putting together. I'm just curious. Now, I will also tell you.
What's the first month?
Hammer. Deep Winter.
Second month.
Alturiac.
Third month.
Chess.
This is the calendar of the Forgotten Realms.
There you go. In March of 1981. Funny how things come full circle there.
That is pretty crazy.
Yeah, there it is. Unearthing those little treasures.
Well done, folks. That almost makes the journey worth it. There's already been some good stuff, but this one almost makes it worth it. That's kind of crazy to see a historical document of that note. But yeah, it looks to have been a little tweaked, if I'm reading this correctly. But that is it in substance.
Yeah, there you go. Task Force Games selling some dungeon tiles. This is before Dwarven Forge was ever a thing.
Yeah, Dwarven Forge when it was cardboard squares.
Yeah. Which, I mean, it could still be cardboard squares depending on where you are. So.
Sure.
All right, let's keep going. Top Secret. Top Secret, there you go. Got a little Top Secret action happening. So.
Hot and happening. Looks like they were giving us a nice basic dungeon. Or a nice basic base to play with.
Yeah.
Basic Bureaus and Special Agents. Always something in my mind that game companies don't do enough of. Give me your baseline characters. How do I start?
Yep.
Don't wander off into the arcane. Give me the beginnings. How do I start?
And one of the nice things about this, as we've noted in previous episodes, the Top Secret stuff, these things are written as though they are some form of top secret memo. Right? That is a very helpful little bit of info. Something to chuckle at over here. In the assassin character, Spectre and especially Smersh have been known to use many an assassin against James Bond. Right? We're just admitting Top Secret is trying to roleplay James Bond without the permission of the media license.
Well, they're simply saying that there's this character in literature,
yes,
not the movies, whose name is James Bond, that's fair use.
Alrighty. Attention, Dungeon Masters! Don't let your people read Dragon Magazine. Oh, sorry.
Right. Yeah.
But hey, you can come by and see us at Strategy and Fantasy World. Believe it or not, there was a chain of game stores. Briefly. There you are. Baltimore, Boston, Cleveland, Falls Church, King of Prussia, Philly, and Wilmington. So the Philly area gets 3 of these things, and the rest of y'all get to suck it.
There you go.
All right, we're going to dig into the Crime Fighters game here.
This has got to be gangbusters.
I think that's what it becomes.
Yeah.
But yeah, but this is pulp adventuring, right? Doc Savage, The Shadow, Agent X9, and others. Of note,
right.
I don't know that they necessarily mention a whole lot of Cthulhu era stuff in here, even though it's essentially the same time period.
Sure.
So, all right, Jim. So, what do you think here? We've got character generation.
I'm cruising around it, and I'm almost certain this is what becomes gangbusters.
Yeah. So your stats: physical power, mental aptitude, willpower, accuracy left, accuracy right, agility, and presence. So your accuracy left and right are separate.
Right. Well, and this is always something that later of RPGs are going to seek, is that whole trying to break down handedness. First game that dealt with it extensively, in my experience, I'm sure it wasn't the first one at all, was GURPS. Mr. Jackson has long been obsessed with the effect of handedness on melee combat.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the character's base to hit when attacking with a gun, missile, or thrown weapon, whether it's left or right-handed. Which is different than your agility.
Man.
Which is different than your presence. I do like that they have presence, right? I do think that is a a good stat to have, particularly when you've got the possibility of modeling some form of psychological domination in the situation, in the scenario, which always seems to be relevant in sort of a crime or criminality focused adventure. That's kind of a nice bit there. So what do we have? So we've got different mental skills. Well, hold on. We've got 10-point mental skills and 30-point mental skills. And then we get over here to agility skills. And so there's all number of different skills that they're describing for you. We have mysterious powers. Each character has a 5% chance of having a mysterious power. All right? And so what are those? Fear or foresight or hypnotism, invisibility, luck. Luck is a mysterious power. Thank you, Domino. Right? For those of you that have seen the second Deadpool movie, you get the joke. Luck is a superpower. Shadow control. I got to go look up what shadow control is. We got to go see this. What the hell is shadow control? All right. With this power,
there we go.
The character will appear to be within a mass of inky shadows in which no clear features are discernible. So this is Cloak from Cloak and Dagger. All these shadows will move with the character as flitting shapes. Either that or this is the Beast from the Magicians TV show, right? Just swap out the moths for some shadows. All attacks against a character using this form of the power will be treated as if he or she were a concealed target. All right. Go with it. So we do have some mystical elements in here.
Well, and again, to your point, they're attempting to take the broader look at pulp, and they narrowed a lot of these things down to take it into what eventually became Gangbusters.
Yeah. Yeah. At first glance, this piece of artwork down here almost looks like a Ninja Turtle. It's not, right? That's like the mask flying off of that dude and everything. But zoomed out at first glance, that does kind of look a little too much like a Ninja Turtle with legs, with long legs.
It does. Yeah. It does.
I mean, this predates the Ninja Turtles by a couple of years, so it's not. But so there's different ways in which experience points can be used. Here's your career table. So things that you could be doing in your career that would lead you into the Crime Fighters game world. All right, so we've still got a whole lot of character generation. We haven't actually done much yet. What do we think? There's some different contacts that you could have based on who your career is. There's your equipment. I always love that, like fantasy equipment lists I kind of get, but the some of the modern equipment lists just seem a little on the silly side. So,
well, I don't. Here's the thing, is that when you leave behind a society in which finding food and shelter and heat are pretty basic things, i.e. your low-tech D&D environment, we all pretty much know where we're going to get these things. Mm-hmm. And we have a basic assumption that if we have a job, okay, as a matter of fact, look at the list. Yeah. Other than submachine gun and dynamite, every one of those seems eminently attainable.
Yep. Yep.
Not so much when you're in a pre-industrial, let's say, Iron Age civilization, as is so often depicted in D&D.
Yeah. Yeah. When fire becomes kind of a key thing.
Right.
So, yeah. Yep. No, definitely. We've got some explosives. We've got some special devices. We've got some vehicles. But again, we've got lots and lots of descriptors of sort of what these things are and just some baseline rules for how to handle them. So if you're going on a car chase, here are some basic car chase rules. But again, for somebody that wants to do some pulp gaming, there's enough in here that a reasonably creative DM, so somebody who's not pure grognard rules-based, if it's not in the rules, you can't do it kind of attitude, you've got enough here to run a game with, right? Combat is still a little sort of tabletop focused, but look, we were all wargamers back then, right? So your encounter distance, state actions, determine initiative, and then start conducting actions in that order of sequence. And so let's let's tell the story, right? Let's figure out how we can tell this story.
And this whole rule set is going to be followed up by an article by Bryce Knorr, who I don't know, talking about why Crime Fighters was in here, why Dave cooked this, why there was this. And it's interesting. We have had several successive waves of interest in pulp.
Yes.
And there's been successes, and there's been tremendous failures. The most successful pulp game ever done, in my mind, is Savage Worlds.
Yeah, yeah. And it's still going.
It's got a huge fan base. It's still going. And I don't care what genre you're playing, which is to say fantasy, sci-fi, historical, they have a lot of that. You're ultimately playing pulp if you're playing Savage Worlds.
Yeah.
And you miss the point if you're not doing it. But it's interesting because it's the only one I can think of that said, no, pulp just isn't something ripped out of the 1920s or 30s. It's something that can cover any kind of gaming.
Yeah. Well,
and that's what a lot of this stuff missed.
Yeah. Of note, I would argue that one of the most successful pulp settings, not necessarily rule set, but one of the most successful pulp settings is actually the now Wizards of the Coast Eberron setting. Right? The Eberron setting is essentially Indiana Jones as a fantasy role-playing game, and was always intended to be. I mean, that was sort of, the designer makes no bones about that's what he was going for. But the Eberron setting is very sort of, so there's sort of gritty, dirty pulp, and there's kind of clean, heroic, adventurous sort of pulp, and
yes.
And I would argue that's really where Eberron is aiming for, and largely hits the mark. I will say, so this is an interesting note at the end of Crime Fighters that I happen to notice as you were talking about pulp stuff. These rules are not complete, nor are they intended to be. Can you imagine releasing a game today with that qualifier in it? Many sections were dropped from the original outline. Right? As such, these, like so many other things, are left to the GM to design. Oh, wait a minute, I just got a game and you're telling me I have to design other things?
That would make some people very, very angry.
Yes. Some persons may complain the rules are not realistic or not detailed enough. Okay, look. We've had this realism conversation enough times already, but the point at which you have a character that can walk around appearing to be engulfed in a mass of flitting shadows, are we really that concerned with realism? Right? Now, I get the idea of wanting to be concerned with internal consistency. Like, that doesn't bother me at all. You want internal consistency within your games, I totally get it. But if you're going to tell me that you're all wrapped up in an issue of realism, right, in a game in which some characters have a 5% chance of having ESP, we're going to have a come-to-Jesus meeting about what realism is.
Right.
We just need to. I also like this. Please be aware, however, that totally negative criticism usually accomplishes little. How well they know their audience. Okay, so we have the case of the editor's envelope, and there's the professor's home and the tea shop. So there's where our things are sort of happening. And here are our pulps for Paper Heroes. So this is what you're talking about. This is what you were talking about, right?
Yeah. Right. Why are we doing this? Why does this game exist? And what motivated it and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think part of the issue of pulp stuff is it, at the risk of sounding a little cheesy or a little corny, it was the pulp landscape was very black and white, right? People were good guys or people were bad guys. And there might be bad guys who are sort of acting good briefly, but once they're revealed to be bad guys, they're bad guys. Like, there's not a lot of ambiguous loyalties running around in pulp stories and pulp adventures. So, the Traveler ad, when your product line consists of 15 black covered books, like identical black books, I don't need a picture of the book covers, guys. I got it.
You know that 308 is High Guard, book 5. Yes, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Look, I got it, right? Your
I
product
can't.
design was done at a goth convention.
I
Covered.
can't even imagine. From our friends at GDW, Normal, Illinois.
Yeah, and look, this is not to say the Traveler material wasn't fantastic. It was. And if Ardwolf is ever listening to this, he's going to totally yell at us about how awesome Traveler was, and he's right. It was a great game. Some significant staying power over the years. However, if this is what you're trying to advertise to me to attract me to check out your game, you're failing. I'm just going to say you're failing. Some sage advice. Let's just go see.
Well,
here's a paladin one for you. You ready?
Sure.
This sounds an awful lot like a question we've seen in another Dragon magazine elsewhere. My friend and I had a dispute as to whether or not a paladin will go on an adventure with neutral good characters. I say no because on page 24 of the PH it says they will only associate with characters and creatures of good alignment. I would like to know who is right.
Well, no, I'm not there yet. But did I not hear this person say neutral good?
Yes. Your friend is right. Neutral
good
is a good alignment, just as lawful good and chaotic good are.
Okay, so we're going to start there. But, I mean, wow. Paladins, for those who don't know, are my jam. They're my favorite thing. I love them to pieces. It drives me insane, the idea that a paladin wouldn't go on an adventure, potentially even with a chaotic evil person, if he thought it achieved an end. He wouldn't like it. He would fight it. He'd try to kill the guy in his sleep, but it could happen.
Well, and funny you should mention that. It also notes on page 24 of the Player's Handbook that, quote, paladins can join a company of adventurers which contains non-evil neutrals only on a single expedition basis.
Okay, well, I don't care. I stipulate that they're not going to like it, but one of my most fondly remembered adventures was the one in which this neutral, lawful evil character and a paladin spent an entire adventure in a mutually necessary arrangement during which they constantly tried to kill each other. And the rest of the party had to deal with the fact that they were constantly trying to kill each other.
Yeah.
It was a great story. Everybody loved it. We had a wonderful time. That's where, if this sort of thing is getting in the way of you playing an adventure, you're playing the wrong way.
Yes.
You broke it already.
All right. I am very confused about the range of spells. Looking in the Player's Handbook on page 78 at Wall of Fire or Wall of Ice spells. 6 inches? Also, look at the area of effect. The book says radius of the ring-shaped Wall of Fire is 1 inch plus a quarter inch per level of experience of the magic user casting it. What is this in reality? In reality, you're playing a flipping game.
But again, much like the one above, he's just not even understanding what scale is.
Yes.
So opportunity to teach about scale, we should do so. And then, if after having done so, he does a little bit of physical calculation and realizes, well, that's possible, we then reply, you do realize you're casting a wall of fire.
Yeah. Which
you cannot actually do.
Yeah.
Just saying. Unless I'm missing some ability you haven't yet narrated for me.
Yeah. These are all... These questions were all clearly written by wargamers seeking errata.
Right.
That's totally what we were after here. All right. We're gonna skip our out. Okay, so wizardry from the Fantasy Trip gang.
Well, this is a happy thing. Right now we are getting ready. 37 years later. This will be rebooted at the end of July.
Huzzah!
On Kickstarter. I will always love the Fantasy Trip. I sincerely hope that this doesn't become a miniature junk show, but instead it is. Let's see. Of these games in the Labyrinth, had it. Advanced Melee. Yep. Advanced Wizard. Yep. Tolkien's Lair. Yep. Melee, Wizard, Death Test. Death Test was a great dungeon. Death Test 2, Grail Quest, Treasure of the Silver Dragon, Security Station. Yeah, I had them all.
A question for you, and so these are, going on 10 years-ish old. Have you ever looked up any of the TFT compatible games and adventures and gamettes from our boys over at Dark City Games?
Absolutely. Yes, I have quite a few of them, actually.
Fantastic games.
That said, and very much in the spirit of the look and feel.
Oh yeah, I have a couple of them here. I will also say that perhaps the worst of them was, I believe, the best-selling of them, and that was Wolves on the Rhine. Was the one that was the historically based one of ancient Rome along the Germanic frontier. It was actually not a particularly well-balanced adventure, but it sold, really well because of its historical basis. So
sure.
Hey, our convention schedule.
Hooray! Always awesome.
What's coming up here? Minicon, Marcon. Hey, Marcon 16. Again, as we've noted in the past, Marcon is still going on, people. Now, it's not at the Columbus Hilton out on Olentangy River Road. It's down at the convention center these days. But Marcon is still going on consecutively. So,
awesome.
Guest of honor was Andrew Offutt. I'm guessing he was not disinvited. I'm going to go out on a limb there. Say he probably kept his invitation intact. So, hey, TSR advertising for help wanted. Expanding our product development staff.
They have 100 employees.
Yeah.
A reasonable hourly wage.
I love the solid grounding in English and writing, a talent for proofreading and editing, good typing ability.
Sure.
Because we didn't have word processors back then to correct it all for us. Some experience with the mechanics of publishing. Based on what we've seen in Dragon Magazine, that might have been the lowest priority that they were recruiting for.
Well, they said some.
Some. I would argue that some would have been a step up from a couple of these magazines that we've seen.
Fair enough.
Yeah, TSR Hobbies is a major publisher of games and game accessories. So,
there you go.
Yeah. Stock purchase options, profit sharing plan, paid vacations and holidays, and more.
I'm sure that these things have vast, vast value at this point.
Yeah. I am a thief. Why should I risk life and limb fighting ferocious monsters in Uncharted Corridors Nameless Dungeon? Right? The Thieves Guild Adventure Series from Game Lords. That is some god-awful art. Good lord, that dude is ugly. I mean, I get that that's probably supposed to be some kind of chainmail shirt, but let's face it, if I told you that was some dude from the Jersey Shore that just shaved his arms and was running around with no shirt on, you would totally believe it.
Yeah, the other thing is, it's supposed to evoke his brooding, pouting nature, and I see none of it.
Yeah. Not great. Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, the figure line.
Oh, the Wizard's Gold. Yes. A gold-plated wizard figure. Yep, I remember these. I actually thought I might get one. Never did.
Of course not. It was like Willy Wonka's golden chocolate bar.
That box that you see there, that Wizard's Room box.
Down at the bottom.
That. Absolutely had that.
I remember, so again, but, we're still 6 months away from me getting into D&D, but I do remember seeing the box on the shelves in places. Back when non-TSR people made licensed D&D products, in this case, Grenadier models. All right, robots. Here come the robots.
Which went nowhere. I remember it, but this is Task Force Games robots.
Yep. And then there's Fast Attack Boats, one of Quinto's album games.
This is the kind of thing that snaps your head around. You're reading a Dragon magazine, and the next thing you know, you're looking at one of the absolute classic of the Quinto phonograph albums, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, they even call it that. That's funny. They came in a very weird box case. The most famous one was Battle, or the one that's most valuable is Swashbuckler these days.
Yep.
Which is a really good game. Games like Oh, what is it
Well,
now?
so Yaquinto had two different lines of games. They had boxed games, and then they
Right.
had the album games, which literally came like a gatefold album. You'd open them up. The map was on
Yes.
the inside of the gatefold, and then in the sides where you normally would have tucked an LP is where you tucked the rules and the counters.
Correct.
I have here on my shelf an unpunched copy of Yaquinto's Hero,
Okay.
which was basically their equivalent of Dungeon.
Oh,
You
all
open
right.
it up, massive dungeon on the inside, lots of little half-inch counters you would move around in there for all the monsters and heroes and everything else. But then Yaquinto also had actual boxed games, because I also have an unpunched copy of Mythology sitting up here on my shelf, which is one of the all-time classic adventure board games. One of the greatest ways to learn good old Greek mythology out there. But then you mentioned Battle. Battle was a bit of a hybrid game. Battle was a fold around gatefold cover like that, but it didn't fold flat like an album. It folded around a pretty crappy box kind of insert tray in the middle. And I know because not only did I have a copy of Battle, I got it for Christmas one year while we were in the middle of moving. We were moving from one duty station to another with my dad, and so we spent Christmas with family, visiting family while moving from one to the other. And I got this thing for Christmas, and it was a real son of a bitch to keep the whole thing together while we were traveling in a cross country car trip. So because it folded around this really crappy tray insert kind of thing, but it never really stayed shut, which was a pain in the ass. So, but yeah, those Yaquinto album games, if you can find them, good luck.
Yeah, like I say, an unpunched swashbuckler is $100 easy.
Oh yeah, yeah, easy. Starfire and Starfire 2 from Task Force Games.
Those were far more successful than robots.
Yeah, well, for good reason. These were actual games worth playing.
Right.
Across the Bright Face and Mission on Mithril from GDW. Here's these were some Traveler Adventures. What else do we have over here? Research Station Gamma from GDW. So some other Traveler-ish stuff here. What else we got in our review area? Oh, no, we're off to figures. Look, we're still photographing on black background. I say still, right? This is way before most of the others we were looking at. Look, this is the best we could do at the time, so kind of had to go with it. I do think the unicorn figure probably looked kind of cool. But notice, what are they doing here? They're rating these things. This is crazy. This is crazy. I've never seen ratings for figures like this.
Oh, I remember this. I remember them doing this.
Yeah, this is kind of insane.
They didn't stick with it.
Yeah,
They did this.
Obviously, but yeah, it is interesting that they tried to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Huh? That's wild. All right, here we go. Squad leader. The Russians reach Berlin.
Yeah, how do you say it enough times? You are in Dragon Magazine, and we have a squad leader scenario. Not just that, but the article above it.
Yep, John Prados.
This is a critical time in the history of the legendary SPI, and he does a pretty good job in this article summarizing what happened. What was, if you want to know what SPI was, why it matters. Now, you have to salt that with knowing it created some of the most seminal games in the history of our hobby that weren't designed by Avalon Hill.
Well, and let's be honest, some of those seminal designs over at Avalon Hill were guys that ended up at SPI as designers.
Oh, precisely. Right. So there's a direct bloodline there, no doubt about it. And I've only skimmed it, but if you want to know that history, and what now you and I know, sitting here today, we know how this ended.
Yeah.
Hint, badly.
Yeah, with lots of people not getting their lifetime subscriptions.
Again, you're hurting. But you see names like Dunnigan. You see names like Berg. Oh dear God. You see Butterfield.
Chris Wagner.
You see Balkowski. These guys are, these are legends. These guys are the highest end of our hobby, that part of our hobby.
Yeah.
And this is a neat little 2-page précis. I like it. But then, yeah, to roll right after it, a setup, and then to go on the very next page to a weird fantasy adventure cartoon.
We're going to get there. Back up with me one
oh,
moment here.
Yeah.
The whole was a fair-sized headache for the monthly board of directors meeting and for the main management people, Jim Dunnigan, Redmond Simonson, and Brad Hessel. Now, Jim Dunnigan, I have met at Connections. He was the keynote speaker one year when I was one of the panel co-chairs. And so, look, I shook his hand. I told him I loved his work. He kind of, gave his normal thank you. He was a very enthusiastic dude for wanting to talk about war games, even still. A very animated speaker, very, very fascinating dude to listen to. It was not like we're drinking buddies, right? I met him at a conference. I shook his hand, said hi. That was it. Redmond Simonson, rest in peace. Never going to have a chance to meet him. Brad Hessel lives here in town with me. I have met Brad Hessel on numerous occasions, having nothing whatsoever to do with wargaming. He is one of the local co-chairs and a current candidate for a state office as a member of the Libertarian Party here in North Carolina.
That's funny.
That is what Brad Hessel does these days. And occasionally plays soccer in one of the over 60 leagues here in town.
That is, because, well, and obviously this is a whole nother conversation we don't have time for right now, but the truth of the matter is these early game guys split up into two pretty distinct political groups.
Yes. And
the idea that you had one of them, you have guys like Jack Green and some of these others that are, and also Kevin Zucker, who are pretty far on the political left. And then you get guys like this that are on the political center to right.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting that, of all places to run into Brad Hessel at some point down the line in my life, this would be where and how. So yes,
that is funny.
We've got the Pinsum cartoon here. Back when Dragon had, look, Dragon started the cartoons in their back pages very early on in their history, and they kept them going for quite some time. Larry Elmore paid a lot of bills on SnarfQuest.
Sure.
Right? and the anthologies thereafter. Hey, check it out. The Electric Eye, Computer Technology and Terminology.
The truth is, this sort of thing, probably more than anything else, ages horribly.
Oh, yeah.
And you have no better way of knowing this than the fact that the very first thing they discuss is the iconic role that was played by Mattel handheld football.
Yes. Yes. The little blips of light with the slightly brighter light indicating who had the ball.
And part 2, which lets you throw the ball.
Yes.
But it's, oh my goodness.
Now.
Oh my goodness.
No. Hang on. Here's another chuckle for you. Sports video games. If you're a visually oriented person, these games should really appeal to you. Instead of chasing dots of light around a painted-on field, video games show little figures running about. Yes, their little legs scurry about around on a playing field on your preferably color TV.
Not everybody had that.
Not everybody had the color TV. You're hoping that these guys did. 3 main suppliers for this type are the Atari VGS, before we were even calling it a 2600, the Magnavox Odyssey, and Mattel's Intellivision.
Read the next paragraph.
Of the above systems, I think Intellivision has the best quality display. Another case of you get what you pay for. They're right. The Intellivision displays were better. What was this?
I played Mattel Intellivision's football, and it had the ability, much like Atari's, to, if the quarterback was dropping back to the left, to run around to the right side of the screen, to fade all the way off the left side till he came out the right, and then turn around and run for a touchdown behind the defense.
Yeah.
This was quite the time.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, is $1981.
Yeah, I don't want to know what that converts to today. But kids, this is where your Xbox came from. As though there's going to be any kids listening to this at all. But
that's true, but,
Yeah. We've made fun of this dude with his 1970s mustache before. We're going to keep going.
Would you like to know how much money that is?
I'm afraid to. $1,100.
That's $714.15.
Okay.
Still, yeah. How much you paying for the Xbox, kids?
Yep. There's a Phineas Fingers Treasury coming up. Just thought we'd announce that. All right, here we go. So you can tell they weren't expecting a lot of women to be reading this, right?
Right.
We've got the shirtless female centaur Pegasus here.
I think it's a Pegasus.
In the wormy dream.
But she's a centaur, yeah.
Yes, Centauruses, right? Running around topless.
Yep.
You know, if you think about it, really, we're all half centaur.
Oh, right. The human half.
Yeah. The fantasy supplement of the complete universe to go with the complete strategist.
Oh, dear.
Go ahead.
They wanted to be in. Complete strategist did not want to let this D&D train leave the station without them.
How'd that work out for him?
Didn't. They gave it a shot, but it's, they're well, it didn't. Let's just say that it didn't.
Yeah. Okay, so take a look at this. I don't want to call it a comic strip cartoon kind of thing over on the left side. This is sort of evocative fiction. But tell me if this doesn't strike you as them trying really, really hard to not rip off the Prince Valiant Sunday strip.
Oh, man. Yeah, oh, wow. Yeah. That really does have that vibe. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Because that was the whole thing, right? Prince Valiant, you would check it out every Sunday. It'd be lovely drawings, and it would tell you a story that never seemed... Because the problem was, and I guess I never lived my life this way, even though I lived in a much less distracted era in my youth, but I would never focus enough to be able to complete the actual arc of the tale.
Oh, heck no. And the other thing is, because those story arcs would run for like 118 weeks, there was always the 2-week vacation in the middle of the summer where you'd completely lose the plot.
Right, and you'd probably miss the key thing that turned the sudden reveal.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, who's this? Where did so-and-so go? What's going on? That sort of thing.
The only thing I remember from all the years of trying to read Prince Valiant, and this is probably 30-something years ago, as our good buddy Corinne would say, 30 mumble years ago.
Right.
There was one story arc where the princess was trying to sort of convert the barbarian masses of the kingdom into good social graces, and she was trying to get everybody to start using cutlery. And so she was going around handing out forks to all the commoners, which, of course, the commoners didn't use to eat their food. They just kept it as sort of a memento of, hey, the princess came to visit, like hung the fork on the wall, except that then some barbarian army ended up pursuing them across a river, and so they took all the forks and planted them in the riverbed for when the barbarians tried fording the water, and that's how they sort of defended the river there.
There you go.
That's like the only thing I ever remember from all the years of reading Prince Valiant.
I was a Mark Trail guy.
Yeah. All right, we've hit our back cover, intentionally upside down, right? They always printed the Martian Chronicle upside down on purpose to make you pay attention and go, hey, wait a minute. That's upside
down.
And then flip it over, which, because this is the back cover, had the added bonus of it now feels like the front cover because it's the way it's oriented. But that's what we got. Jim, we did not get this in remotely close to a short amount of time.
Well, we made an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Which isn't too bad by our standards.
No, it's... But this was a significantly shorter issue than we are normally doing this to.
Right, but I'm going to say, I like this one. This was a good one. I particularly enjoyed, obviously, anything that's got a squad leader. I'm making notes of all of them that have squad leader scenarios because I still play squad leader.
So you go back and dig them up?
you dig them up, find out what they're like, give them a shot. That's a free scenario, right? It's nothing I got to pay for. I liked the SPI Dunnigan article, but I absolutely thought that the earlier stuff about, I really liked the stuff bringing in the mythic characters and statting them out, which, as I said before, I do enjoy. And this was a good one. I give this one a definite thumbs up.
The D&D quiz is always entertaining.
And the D&D quiz is, I'll always tune in, especially since it brings me back to a time when, as you correctly said, oh boy, would I have been on top of that.
Yes. Yes. And arguing with your friends about what the answers were.
Right. And saying, oh, no, that was total garbage. I got it right. They got it wrong.
Well, I grabbed this because it had the Crime Fighters game in it. I kind of wanted to take a look at the Crime Fighters game, and honestly, we sort of blew through it a little quickly, but that's okay. There were plenty of other things in here to keep our attention. But it is interesting to see the evolution of magazine-based role-playing games. So not the board games, right? The Tom Wham games, pretty self-contained units, lots of fun. We had a good time with them. Like you said, Crime Fighters evolved into gangbusters. The guys that from Better Games out in Southern California that rebooted Space Gamer Fantasy Gamer in the early 90s, every one of those magazines had a role-playing game in it. And some of them later evolved into bigger productions, but all of them were quite entertaining in their own sort of silly kinds of ways. I say silly. They were taken very seriously by the authors. They had some great concepts in them. Some of the execution made you scratch your head and just think, what the hell were they doing here? But the idea of packaging what is supposed to be a complete role-playing game in a magazine was kind of wacky, but kind of neat to see what they chose to put in and not put in.
Absolutely.
So, no complaints. Jim, this was fun. We should do it again.
I think so. Let's do it.
All right. Works for me.